On the morning of 12 June 1962, a loud siren began wailing from the top of a rock in San Francisco Bay. Few, if any, had ever before heard it sound in such anger. It was the escape siren on the supposedly inescapable island prison of Alcatraz. Three inmates had done the unthinkable. They had just escaped from Alcatraz. 1930s was a very crazy time in crime history. America was practically in a full-fledged war against mafia during the whole of this decade. The power of mobs was ever increasing and crime was at its all-time peak. Amongst all this chaos, FBI realized that they need a stronghold to keep all the dangerous criminals at just one place. Alcatraz was the answer to all of their problems. Built around 1930s, Alcatraz was constructed on a completely isolated island, some 2.01 kilometers away from the coast of San Francisco. Its location played a crucial role in its security. The complete cutoff from land meant that the only way to escape was from boats, rafts, or swimming in ice-cold waters. Even if you somehow dare to enter the freezing waters, you will soon be greeted by great white sharks.
Alcatraz is a maximum security prison with very few privileges. We don't make good citizens, but we make good prisoners. People have tried to escape. Most of them have been recaptured. Those that haven't have been killed or drowned in the bay. No one has ever escaped from Alcatraz.
Alcatraz was a one tough prison to escape from. Each inmate was kept in an individual cell with little to no privacy. The steel used in the cell was called tool resistant, meaning no blade or saw could cut through it, no matter how hard the inmates tried. Guards constantly patrolled the corridors with as much as 12 counts a day. Even if you somehow managed to escape from your cell, the guards would know it right away. For these many reasons, most people considered Alcatraz to be completely escape-proof. But these three inmates eventually proved all of them wrong. Frank Morris was a pretty interesting character. He can be called the mastermind of this escape. He had experienced a troubled childhood when he was left by his parents at just age 11. He got involved in crime since the early age of 13 and was arrested for arms robbery and narcotics possession. For most part of his life, he was imprisoned in Florida and Georgia prison. He was not your ordinary bank robber. He had an IQ of 133 and was mentioned as an escape artist in his prison report. Proving his nickname of escape artist right, he soon evaded Georgia prison's authorities. However, he was soon caught and was finally sent to Alcatraz in January 20, 1960. The Anglin brothers shared this tendency of escaping from prisons as well. Born in a farmer's family with 13 other siblings, they too had experienced a troubled childhood, haunted with poverty. For quite some time, they both worked as farmers and laborers, but they soon realized that their work included a lot of toil and little in return. so they both resorted to easy ways of making money. Clarence was first caught breaking into a service station when he was just 14. They started on robbing various banks, but they say that they never used a lethal weapon even once. In fact, the most dangerous weapon that they say they ever used was a toy gun. They were caught breaking a bank and were put in Atlanta prison where they met our man Franklin. After repeated failed attempts to escape from Atlanta facility, the brothers were finally transferred to Alcatraz. However, as many people generally believe, these three were not the only ones involved in this great escape. There was a fourth one as well, who is often left behind the shadows. Alan West, a car thief, came to Alcatraz in 1957 after an unsuccessful escape attempt from the Florida facility. He was involved in the plan, but due to circumstances which we would later see, he failed and later gave in much information about this escape. The plan was formulated by Alan and the supposed genius Morris. West had worked in the maintenance of the prison, so he knew that the ventilation grates in their cells opened directly into an unused utility corridor. For 6 months, the men widened the vents beneath their sinks using various makeshift tools. These tools were made using spoons, which were then fitted with discarded saw blades. The inmates alternated shifts, with one working and the other on the lookout. Frank would often play his accordion to muffle all the noise from their work. They even made fake paper grills to conceal their work using magazines from the prison library. Alan, however, used concrete to keep them in place, a mistake for which he would heavily pay after. Meanwhile, the Anglin brothers were busy creating head dummies from soap, toothpaste, and toilet paper. Clarence worked in the prison's barber shop and had stolen some hair, which made the dummies even more lifelike. They would place them on their beds every night while they ventured out from behind the wall into the utility corridor. From the utility corridor, they climbed on top of their cell blocks where they had prepared a special workshop to store all of their tools. West was able to hoard some 50 raincoats either by outright stealing them from prison's clothes shop or asking other inmates to give theirs. These raincoats were used to make life preservers and a 6 by 14 feet rubber raft to tread the treacherous waters. The escapees knew about the dangerous San Francisco Bay and had left no stone unturned to make the escape a successful one. All this preparation went for 6 months straight. Every night after the lights out, the inmates would climb into their special workshop and work on their raft. Finally, on the morning of June 11th, Morris announced that the day had come. They would escape Alcatraz on that very night. Morris and the Anglins left their cell at around 10 p.m. and stood in the utility corridor waiting for the fourth escapee, West. However, the cement grill around West's vent had hardened, diminishing the hole in size and fixing the grill in its place. By the time he managed to remove the grill, the others had already left, and he was left behind staring blankly into an empty utility corridor. Cement dust had snatched away the ultimate freedom from him. The rest had already reached on the roof. It is reported that when Morris pushed open the roof's ventilator, a loud thud was heard by many guards, but all of them disregarded it nevertheless. They inflated their raft using the motor from Morris's accordion. West later reported that Morris had got this idea from a popular magazine which he had read in prison's library. The inmates traversed 100 feet across the rooftop and then carefully maneuvered down some 50 feet of piping to the ground. They boarded their raft and finally swam away from Alcatraz. This is the last known point of the three escapees. Dummy heads did their job very well. Guards did not notice anything until the very next morning. As the count was made at around 8 am, guards finally found out that they all had been fooled. FBI was called immediately, and the press was informed that the Alcatraz has been finally broken out of. A massive manhunt began, involving federal agents and local police. Several military helicopters and boats swarmed into the bay to look for the fugitives. FBI was determined to find the three men, dead or alive. But the search operation yielded nothing. So FBI finally concluded that the escapees had drowned in the bay. An answer which raised a lot more questions. Most of the people were of firm belief that the escape attempt had turned futile. The waters in the bay are always filled with strong currents, with temperatures ranging from 5 to 10 degrees Celsius. Swimming in such cold waters in the presence of sharks is not an easy task, even for someone with a raft. On the very next day of the escape, the FBI found a wooden paddle floating on the waters near Alcatraz Island. This meant that the fugitives were left with only one, as West had confirmed that they made only two of them. A raft, 3 escapees, and a single paddle. A tough journey indeed. On 14 June, the search team found yet another evidence that somewhat suggested the ill luck of the escapees. They found 2 bags floating on the waters which belonged to either of the Anglin brothers. These bags contained a family photo of the Anglins, a list of names with phone numbers written on it, and a letter addressed to Clarence Anglin. Many people saw this as clear evidence that the escapees had drowned and the bag was left behind. According to the plan, the escapees wanted to hijack a car and rob a clothes shop to get the cash that they very much needed. But no such cases were registered anywhere near Alcatraz in 24 hours of the escape, which meant that the escapees had to evade the police without any cash in their hands. FBI had to discontinue its efforts in locating the 3 convicts due to lack of funds and public interest. The case was closed after 47 years of the escape, with the conclusion that the 3 escapees had drowned in the bay. However, some people did not believe in FBI's lackluster conclusion. They pointed out that almost all of the evidences were shaky and can easily be countered. They say that the escapees had probably left the 2 bags willingly to make the law enforcement think that they all had drowned. The things in the bag also seemed to be quite insignificant for them to have taken out of their cell. An old letter and a family photo would not have helped them in any way and would have just added to their bulk. Since the escape, there have been many sightings of the 3 men reported and leads to their whereabouts submitted. A day after the escape, a San Francisco cop, Robert Secchi, reported seeing a white boat on the bay the same night of the escape. It appeared to be empty, but later on, someone flashed a spotlight from the boat into the water and then the boat disappeared completely. FBI team rushed to the spot when Robert reported the incident but could not find any evidences of such a boat. They quickly refused the sighting as mere imagination of Robert. However, 54 years later, in 2016, a man on the verge of dying in a San Francisco hospital confessed to his nurse that he and an accomplice had picked up the three convicts from the water and transported them back to land. This somewhat confirmed Robert's story of white boat, but the FBI again discarded it nevertheless, claiming lack of clear evidences. The mother of the Anglin brothers received flowers anonymously on every Mother's Day until her death in 1973. The family even reproduced a Christmas card which read, "To Mom from Clarence and John." FBI took the card to its forensic but could not determine the exact date in which it was written. Some reports suggest that two very tall and unusual women had attended the funeral of the mother of the Anglin brothers. Many family members believe to this day that they were the two brothers who went there to pay their homage. 13 years after the escape, Fred Brizzi, a family friend of the Anglins, claimed that he met the Anglin brothers in Brazil. He brought this photo back with him as a proof and gave it to the Anglins, who decided to hide it from the eyes of the FBI. Clarence, as claimed by Brizzi, was standing on the right and his features matched quite well with his previous photos. His forehead and jawline matched almost perfectly, letting many to believe in the credibility of the photo. The Anglin family finally made the photo public in 2015 in a history TV show called Alcatraz: The Search for the Truth. The photo was given to the US Marshals for further investigation. Michael Street, a forensic expert, was called upon and given the photo to analyze. He concluded that it is highly likely that the photo depicts the two Anglin brothers, but it is impossible to be sure. All of these proofs mention only about the Anglins. There is no shred of evidence that could somehow indicate what happened to our escape artist, Frank. He had no family or relatives, and his friends refused to have ever heard of him after he went to Alcatraz. Maybe he drowned. Maybe the Anglins killed him. Maybe they all three drowned. We can never tell. We can only say that these three men challenged the toughest prison ever made and were even able to escape from it. Did they survive after that or perished in the waters? Remains one of the biggest prison mysteries ever.